Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Spencer Ostrowski with Argy Culture, and I'm with Kevin, of course.
Hello, everybody.
So yeah, I saw. Well, I didn't know Spider-Man came out yesterday until you told me. I had no idea.
Got tickets like as we were discussing the fact that it came
I was
out.
like, man, you should go see Spider-Man. I'm like, oh, when does it come out? It's like, I already saw it. I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, well, fuck it. Let me go buy a movie ticket, and I did. I went late at night.
All right, so yeah, Spider-Man: Far From Home, the first Marvel Cinematic Universe movie to release after Avengers: Endgame. So kind of a lot of expectations heading into it. So if we want to get into the one sentence review, how do you think we did? How do we think Spider-Man: Far From Home did?
I got okay. So here's mine. I got fucking bamboozled.
Mine is my favorite live-action Spider-Man movie.
Okay.
Boom.
Well, okay. We'll branch off. I'll do
Okay,
mine, and then we'll go into
go ahead and
yours.
explain yourself.
I seriously did get tricked. Like, I'm gullible. Like, I'm pretty like dumb when it comes to movies and stuff. Like, I don't really catch on like the obvious things that other people do. I really just like live in the moment. I thought they were going in a different direction with Mysterio for a second.
You really thought that he like wouldn't be
Uh,
a villain?
no, like no, I knew he would be a villain. Like that wasn't the whole idea. I was like, okay, obviously it's Mysterio. He's a Spider-Man villain. I know he'd be the villain, but I thought they were actually going to go like in a different direction with like the character itself. Like I thought they were like really going to delve into all this crazy shit,
Like he
and
really was
then
some kind of like multiverse warrior.
yeah, like I know it's stupid like to say now like out loud, but like like superhero movies take a lot of liberties these days. So I was like, whoa, they're just going crazy with this, aren't they?
Well, no, if
And
we
I
can afford to get into that a little bit, like I know you didn't watch like any of the promotional stuff for this movie.
I had when I came into this movie, I had no idea what was going on, and I'm and dude, I'm so glad I did that, and I'm so glad I do that with all movies. I hate like I'll watch the initial teaser trailer because that doesn't really show you anything,
Hmm.
but after that, I do not like watching trailers, and I like it was hard obviously because they were promoting not a single clip or anything, so I was so new going into this, and I just watched it.
So yeah, I wanted to like get into that because like in that like in the promotional stuff and in the trailers and stuff like that, like they teased like the multiverse stuff, like uh that Quinn and Beck was from a different Earth, and
Yeah,
you know the Earth that the MCU exists in is Earth 616. So it's like doing a lot of like playing to the comic book fans, and it really had you thinking like, oh, we're this is the in for like so many different things in the MCU. Like this is how we get
right.
introduced to
And
the
I
X-Men and the
believed it.
Fantastic Four and
Yeah,
stuff
I
like that.
believed it.
And it turns out all to be kind of like a trick, like part of the illusion for Mysterio, and I thought that was really cool. And it kind of just it really does like play you for a loop because you think like, oh, how are they going to explain this multiverse thing? Are they really going to use this the the movies, like usually like the more self-contained. I want to It's a strange situation with Spider-Man. I always thought his stories in the MCU are more self-contained, but the wider like the circumstances of the movie are more affected by the overall MCU than I think any other movie. Just as an aside, but yeah, the when they really do flip it around on you, it really is like, oh wow, this is pretty crazy. This goes a lot deeper. Spoilers, obviously. When when the big Mysterio reveal happens, you're like, oh, obviously, like he's gonna be some kind of liar, some fake in some form like that. But it goes a lot deeper than I think I like you or I ever
Yeah,
expected as far as like
yeah,
the
it's
illusions
awesome.
and like the
I
whole
was like,
setup
yeah,
and all that stuff.
yeah, like this is the real Mysterio right here. That's incredible. Uh,
And if we can talk
yeah,
about Jake Gyllenhaal for a second, he like one of my favorite like traits of his as an actor is like he can like intensity is one of his like best like acting chops. Like he can display intensity really well, and he did it with Mysterio, like as a guy, like portraying a guy who's just like super on edge and someone who is like like clutching to a lie so desperately. He really portrayed that very well. I love Jake Gyllenhaal in this movie.
and I love the reveal and the callbacks
Exactly, that was
uh
awesome.
from past movies. Oh, that was so great. Like the callback to Iron Man 1, like that's insane. I thought that was like it didn't have really anything to do with the story, but like I'm like, whoa, that's like crazy. I was like freaking out in the movie theater.
Or even
Not
just
so much with
like,
the bar thing, because that was just like a elemental plot. But the other guy, like I thought that was so cool, like that they just included him in the whole idea. Like this plot had been going on for so long, you know?
yeah, kind of just everyone being involved with Stark Industries or having interacted with Tony Stark in the past in some kind of way. I thought that was really cool because obviously he's such a huge character in this universe that you kind of can't like, you can't really like, he can't just die and that be the end of it. There has to be some lingering stuff, like, in the universe. So I think the way they went about it, I thought the Barf thing was pretty cool. That him being the guy that kind of created the tech, the Barf tech, and it playing into how he's able to create such like vivid illusions. I thought that was really really cool.
Yeah, just another callback to like past Marvel movies. They're doing such a great job of intertwining all these movies. It's awesome, really. And this was like a culmination of so many like different things that have been going on. Like, and I feel like it was all like coming together. Like there was consequences to like even the most minor details of all these movies I've been watching for years now.
It's movies like this where I think back on that. Vox put out like a video essay like a couple months ago, talking about how like the MCU feels really empty and like there are no stakes or consequences or like, uh, you know, one event, the events exist in a vacuum and don't really affect each other. But and then I look at these Spider-Man movies and like they're all directly affected by events that happen in other Marvel movies, and I appreciate it on a deeper level, and then it just makes me think back to that dumbass like video essay, and it's just like, why did they ever think that? But as far as like your take on it, as far as getting bamboozled like that, my take in that it's the my favorite live action Spider-Man movie that I've ever seen. It's just I'm so sold on Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I'm like all the way in on it. I've I don't appreciate. I've never appreciated and just been so emotionally attached to someone who's portrayed Peter Parker than I have with Tom Holland, and I really like appreciate everything he embodies as Peter Parker. If we want to get into that for a little bit.
Yeah, okay, so that's certainly something that I wanted to talk about. I will say the only aspect of Tom Holland and the whole Spider-Man thing that I'm not quite there yet, but there is also kind of an explanation for it. I don't like okay, so the movements and the CGI for Spider-Man are completely like
Sure,
that of what you would imagine for
sure.
Spider-Man. But whole like Spider-Man attitude or persona, I can't explain
Mm-hmm.
it. It's like they haven't perfected Spider-Man yet. Like they've perfected Peter Parker, I believe, because we'll talk about it in a second. I just
Sure.
want to talk specifically about this because there's a lot to talk about when you talk about just Tom Holland as Peter Parker. But I don't like Peter Parker is like very I can't even like the confidence like of being Spider-Man, like the whole like nerdy kind of
In that,
witty type of kid.
in the
Like he
sense of
hasn't
like
like
it,
that Spider-Man hasn't come out yet.
in the sense of like, oh, Peter Parker is like this awkward kind of geeky nerd dude, and then Spider Man's this kind of cool like loudmouth kind of guy. I think
Yeah,
I get what you're saying
exactly.
there.
Yeah, the whole witty thing. So they haven't quite done that then, but like the explanation I guess would be that he's 16 years old. Like
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
right, yeah. But I would love to see maybe in the next time we see Spider-Man that he becomes a little more confident, a little more witty, because that's like the very class.
For
Okay,
just for just to
are you
him to
there?
be like fully in his bag, like, and being like the Spider Man.
Uh, yeah, not like moveset wise. I'm just talking about like yeah, persona wise.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
the whole yeah identity of Spider-Man.
I
Okay, so
think
now we can talk about like the kind I guess the kind of the tweet from our Twitter page that kind of not blew up, but it has like over 100 likes. So I guess it's technically I don't know
sure,
whatever you want to call
sure.
it. The popular tweet. Because that can be the starting point for this whole discussion. When I got out of that movie and like the tweet is true, this is the first movie where I felt like Spider-Man was an actual freaking
If you
teenager. Like
if you
Andrew
haven't seen
Garfield,
if you haven't seen the
yeah.
tweet, she or sorry, I just got a text message. Spencer made a tweet about Spider-Man Far From Home being the first time like Spider-Man actually felt like a kid. Spider-Man and all of his friends and his peers and his schoolmates actually felt like kids and not 40-year-old adults playing high school kids. And because like when you look at it, the guy who's playing like Deathstroke in the DCEU, Joe whatever, super Italian last name, whatever his face is, Flash Thompson.
Rigatini.
Yeah, like he's Flash Thompson, and he looks like a 35-year-old man. Tobey Maguire looks like he's approaching his
Yeah.
30s. Like everyone in the Raimi movies looks way older than they're telling us that they are.
It's the
And it's
same for Garfield. And plus, there's no like he might as well not even be in high school. Andrew Garfield and the Amazing Spider-Man movies, they're all like old as shit, man. Like I don't believe these guys go to school. And like the whole idea, like the bullies in both those movies are just so like old-fashioned stuff like that. And now you kind of like actually feel because like okay, so the whole thing behind the Spider-Man character is that he's this relatable person. And in the original comics where there were these like classic bullies, it made sense in that time era because that's what bullies were back in the day. But
now
they've
it's
really gone
like
back to
it's
like the roots,
contemporary.
not like literally the roots of like having Flash being this asshole bully, but like the roots of like a bully, and that's like a modern bully today is one that like will bully you on social media
Yeah,
or
it's more
embarrass you in front of your
cerebral.
classmates.
Yeah, like there's no like
Yeah,
lunch money
exactly.
stealing and like slapping books out of hands
Exactly.
anymore.
Yeah, because that's not really relevant anymore. Like they really adapted to what Spider-Man is, like just this relatable teenage kid, and like this movie like reminded you what it was like to be in high school, like how awkward it is to be like a high school student, and like you can remember that, you can relate with that, which is like what Spider-Man really is.
That's the thing I appreciate most with these MCU Spider-Man movies because like it is a different take overall because the past two have not really focused on Peter Parker being a teenager and the pitfalls of being a teenager and also being a superhero. And this kind of like very much is dedicated to that overall theme. And like these movies, they for the first part of them, they feel like teenage romantic comedies, and more towards the end, and especially now in Far From Home, over over home after Homecoming, there's more of the superhero responsibility weaved in there after the events of Infinity War and Endgame. Um, but it's charming. The thing is, like above everything else, it's charming in that like the cast works well together, and it seems just more genuine because every Spider-Man movie past, school is just like the stepping stone, and it's kind of passed over, and there's not a lot of heart put
Yeah,
into those scenes. But
the
this, it's like,
necessity. Yeah,
yeah, but in these movies, it's almost like it's as Peter Parker being in high school is as important as him being Spider-Man in these movies, and I really like that. I really like
yeah.
the dedication they
He
have to
literally
that.
was like willing to like stay on this trip to not like save the world or in the moment where he thought, like, and if it's like he felt real that he actually was like a high school student.
Yeah, and like and as far as like your take on, you don't really feel that the Tom Holland Spider-Man has come into his own and felt like a true natural Spider-Man. I understand that, but I also think like at the same time, like I think the steps are being taken, and I think I would say like, to that I would just say, wait for the bigger payoff in that like we're eventually going to get that we're going to get to that point.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm excited to see it. And they have like the whole athleticism part of that Sam Raimi did so well, and I think that the Amazing Spider-Man didn't do so well was like just the movements of Spider-Man are like what you would
Mhm.
imagine them to be like from the comic books.
And
So,
if yeah, go ahead.
yeah. No, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, like what I appreciated like the most about this from a Spider-Man perspective is like the action was so like it was really inventive, just because you see like whatever it's been in the past, it's there's obviously like creative like action sequences in Spider-Man movies before, like the train scene in Spider-Man 2 was awesome, but like this time you take like Spider-Man fighting hundreds and hundreds of drones and just fruit ninja, like going all fruit ninja on them essentially, and just destroying hundreds of drones in like a really cool like fashion, trying to like round up as many of them as he can to destroy them all at once. I thought was really like engaging as far as action is concerned, and I was really like when he's like blinded and he's like moving through the illusions to destroy the drones. I thought like he felt like he was going like fucking Super Saiyan to me, man. I was really getting hyped up about it, and I was like really really excited overall for like all of like it building up to that point too, because the first act of the movie does seem more like that. It does lean, I think, even a little more heavily into like the teenage romantic comedy stuff that was established in Spider-Man Homecoming, and when you see the actual Spider-Man stuff get weaved more into it, I think overall it creates a bigger payoff.
Yeah, we have to take it. They are the best we've ever seen in a Marvel movie. I mean,
What was, you cut out for a second?
the visuals of that's we have to take
Oh
a
yeah.
moment to appreciate the visuals of the movie. They were probably the best we've ever seen in a Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, I say some of the best visuals I've ever seen in a movie, just in general. Just the way, like the whole Mysterio scenes, like intertwine within each other. Like not the ones where like the fake illusions as he makes. Well, they're all fake illusions, but I'm talking about like not the scripted acts, like the one where Spider-Man's in that construction building. Like the way things
Mm-hmm.
change and the way they transition and how like good it looks. It's like
Really
damn, like this
creative.
movie is
Yeah.
crazy.
It was really like
And like yeah, and just the Spider-Man villain was just like the most true like sense to like the character itself and like taking advantage of modern technology and like not and like going all out essentially for a superhero villain and sometimes I feel like villain conflicts are solved too quickly in superhero movies and I
mhm.
think Marvel is really taking a good approach to like okay, so a lot of superhero movies are about so much about the main character that like the villain is just like some sort of piece that goes along. Like we got a full movie of Mysterio. We like saw an
Mhm.
entire thing about him, and like like the Mysterio like was directly interacting with character development for Peter Parker. Like Peter Parker wasn't going through this character development on its own, and then he had to deal with Mysterio. Like they were all one story, and I think that was a really really good thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. Like one of the bigger pitfalls in like the greater MCU, like more as a whole, is they have really like weak villains that you can't really buy into. But I think as of recent, you see more and more like focus being put into kind of interweaving the villain with the hero, in so it makes it more emotionally compelling to the like when that big conflict comes and has the big blow off at the end of the movie essentially. And Mysterio, I think, sets himself up very nicely in this franchise, especially going forward. And like being like the relationship building they did with Peter and Mysterio in this movie was genuinely very very good, especially just because like you really like they kind of bait and switch you. They really make you do believe Mysterio is kind of like it has this different backstory than it traditionally has been portrayed in the past. It really makes it seem like, oh, this is this guy from this different universe. It's this character we're familiar with, but his story has changed, and it makes you like curious, like what else has changed about him, only for it to be like, oh, it's the same kind of thing, but in this new kind of interpretation of it.
Oh yeah, it was great. Like the whole like once like the reveal goes down, like the whole like rest of the movie is just it really goes fast. A lot of Marvel movies that it starts slow, and I think this one does too. But once you really get into the swing of things, it's awesome. And we could even get into like the whole suit designs and stuff like that because
I want to
those were
talk.
incredible as
I want
well.
to talk about the point you just made. Like this movie does spend a lot of time laying the bricks and like setting the foundation for the rest of the movie. And
Yeah.
some people may think that runs a little long, and they may take like they probably, if you were to say that the first act ran a little too long in what its like focus was, I'd be fine with that. But I do think it overall makes the latter parts of the movie more impactful because of all the time they spent. So one second. But yeah, like we can talk about like suits and stuff like that too if you want, because that's obviously a huge part of Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man Noir is always my favorite suit, and I'm pretty sure that's what that was supposed to be. It looks
Like a callback to that. Yeah, I really like that the stealth suit.
Spider-Man Noir will always be my favorite Spider-Man. I thought the fact that they had it in there was just absolutely incredible. And of course, when the whole like scene where he's like making the new suit at the end, and it's like a callback to the essentially the first Iron Man was also really cool.
Yeah, and they're like playing
Uh,
the ACDC and stuff like
yeah,
that too. It was really cool.
right, yeah.
Really, really cool moment. That, and it's
So
moments
yeah,
like
yeah,
that that
they're
is
like,
seem
yeah.
it's moments like that that seem earned too. Like this is the sixth Tom Holland this is the sixth movie that Tom Holland has played Spider-Man in, and a moment like that you feel like you kind of wait for, but it feels earned when you finally get it, and I really appreciated that moment as it played out.
Yeah, I mean, and the whole underlining theme of this whole movie is that like he is taking on the role of the new Spider or Iron Man, and that's like we didn't know if Marvel was going to completely commit to that whole idea, but like clearly like that's their plan. Like they're going full out. Like he is going to eventually take over the Avengers and develop into that over time, and we'll probably fast forward probably 4 years into the future, and kind of see the development of that kind of thing, you know. So it'll be interesting to see where they go forward from here with him, because now he is going, like, you would assume in the next movie he's going to take the next step forward and kind of assume that role that he was so hesitant to take in this movie.
Yeah, definitely. It does seem like kind of like a Luke Skywalker kind of path where he's kind of the noob in the beginning. This is obviously like peppered in with the the Avengers movies. I don't know why that escaped my brain. But like there's a lot of like Star Wars references in these movies and like little allusions to Star Wars, and I think that's kind of on purpose, because I think Peter does take kind of like a Luke Skywalker approach to this, in that like he is a novice and kind of like new to the whole superhero thing in the beginning, and then now he's seeing Far From Home. You know, he's a little more advanced, but he still has like a lot of growing up to do and a lot of like difficult decisions and sacrifices to make. And I hope they kind of cap that off with, you see in this next Spider-Man movie, he is kind of like more mature and kind of seasoned and used to being a superhero. Yeah, if that's it about the movie, if we want to move on to the post-credit scene.
Yeah, so they're going
Warrants
full
discussion there.
Iron Man on it, I guess. I mean, in a sense, right?
In a
if there's
sense
going to
of
be
like,
another
yeah,
parallel
it's
to
a
the end
huge
of an Iron Man movie,
a huge reveal of the secret identity. Yeah. So yeah, this
a bold
post credits.
choice. I mean, clearly they've planned far ahead in advance by saying that, because now they don't have any wiggle room, right? So
yeah, you kind of
they
flip one of the
know
most,
what they're doing with Spider-Man for the next 4 years.
Yeah, you kind of flip one of the most conventional, like, pillars of the Spider-Man character on its head, and that you take away his secret identity, because that's kind of like been so central to what like Spider-Man's internal conflict has been the entire time. He has to struggle with being normal Peter Parker and also being the Amazing Spider-Man, So you're kind of it seems like you're kind of yanking that away, and you're pulling the curtain back, and you're kind of like, okay, Peter Parker is going to have to learn what it's like to be a public superhero and like be out there. And bringing back J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson was just like icing on top of the cake for all of that. I know you were hyped about that.
Marvel history.
It was incredible.
I was so excited to see that, because he is J. Jonah Jameson, man. There is no one other.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I'm very glad that if the Amazing Spider-Man movies did us any favors, it's that like they kind of never casted J. Jonah Jameson. In the Garfield movies, it was kind of just like a little Easter egg, an allusion to his existence. But
yeah,
if the MCU was ever going to bring back J. Jonah Jameson, I'm very much glad they did it as J.K. Simmons.
It's
and
so awesome.
The interpretation of him now, because obviously it's like newspapers this is supposed to be, kind of, you're supposed to be able to identify with this as a young adult, or a youth, as the kids call them. As the kids call themselves. No one reads newspapers anymore, so it only makes sense for J. Jonah Jameson to be an Alex Jones-style InfoWars podcast host.
Yeah, it's great. The whole modern take, right? Because you can't have the Daily Bugle in this kind of MCU universe. It wouldn't make sense at all. So yeah, it was just awesome when I saw it. I was not expecting it at all. I was honestly didn't even think there were going to be post credit scenes until you had texted me, so I stayed in the movie theater, and it was so awesome.
Yeah, it was incredible, and especially just the way it sets up the next couple, arc for Spider-Man. Now it's like, okay, he's kind of wrapped it up and he's accepted, his status as a hero and what his responsibilities as a hero are, and what he has to do in order to kind of achieve that balance. And now it kind of just throws this wrench in it. It's like, okay, well, now here's the next thing you have to do, and that's struggle with your, being in the public spotlight. And now Spider-Man is being scrutinized against, because, it's been kind of like, oh, he's the Spider-Man from YouTube. There's been a relatively positive like view on Spider-Man, and now we're kind of flipping that on its head.
And that's really true to the Spider-Man character just in general. Like,
yeah, he's always been
used to take the form of J. Jonah Jameson, like doing it in the news, but now it's like kind of like an internet thing as well. So
I love that.
So yeah, it's pretty faithful.
The cliffhanger like aspect of it, and now you move on to the post credit scene, in that for an undisclosed amount of time, Nick Fury has been a Skrull. He's been Talos, the Skrull from Captain Marvel, and Maria Hill, wherever she is, has, for also in an undisclosed amount of time, been a Skrull for as Talos' wife. So what do we think about that?
necessarily think that had like a really huge implication on the greater Marvel movie. We'll have to see like if they actually end up doing anything to it. I think it was more like a joke because like Nick Fury was there the entire time, so like technically like
Well,
they
throughout
weren't
this movie,
acting
we
for
know
themselves.
that Nick Fury was Talos in disguise. We know that for
Right.
sure. But what we don't know is like how many points throughout the MCU was Nick Fury a Skrull? How many points in time was he with Captain Marvel in space the entire time? Like, what's going on? And what is he
Yeah, I don't
doing?
know. I
What is
guess
he
we'll leave
doing?
that to the video essay people of YouTube.
Yeah, and I'm just it's just
It's interesting though.
it opens up a lot of questions in that, like, what is Nick Fury doing with these scrolls out in
Yeah,
space, and
exactly.
like,
That's the biggest question of the
yeah,
post scene,
so
right? Like, what's his plan?
I'm very interested to see how that kind of plays out, and maybe for like Captain Marvel sequels or something like that. So that's pretty much it as far as like going through the movie goes. If you wanna, do you have any concluding final thoughts?
I think this was my favorite Marvel movie
Like
ever.
ever? Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy. It's really, really good, man. I can't wait to go see it again. I just pulled up my article from Jeremy Conrad. If you're not following him on Twitter, you probably should if you like the MCU. Kind of speculates that if Peter Parker needs a lawyer in the MCU now that he's been sexually doxxed by Mysterio,
Oh, yeah.
maybe we get
I know
Matt
an MCU
Murdock.
lawyer.
Maybe we get Matt Murdock up in here.
And if it is, they better cast it as the guy who does the
I think
Daredevil
that's what
TV
they would do.
shows.
I think that's
That
what
would
they would do.
be
Yeah.
because he's like a beloved like character now. Because not obviously not all the TV Marvel shows were good. Like Agents of Shield, like really was pretty bad. And
People still like cape for it though. They have a pretty devoted fan base, Agents of Shield, but I think they've kind of like
after
diluted
that,
from the
it went off
canon.
the rails. And then you have you have Luke Cage, which no one watches.
Not
So
very
I
good.
think if they're going to like try to promote, I mean, yeah, in a sense, promote their
Take the
like TV
strengths, yeah.
lineup, because when Disney Plus comes out, they're obviously going to have more Marvel TV shows.
Hmm.
I think that's a great way to do it. And plus, I would love to see the Daredevil in a Marvel, like to see what they would do with him in a Marvel sense. Like that would be so awesome.
Yeah, it's just opens up. I think this kind of cracks the egg of the Spider-Man stuff because they have been, like I said, these kind of self-contained stories. The effect of the events of the greater MCU do end up affecting Spider-Man, but the events of Spider-Man don't end up affecting the greater MCU. I think we're kind of breaking that open a little bit now, and opening Spider-Man up to the rest of the MCU as far as like the scale of the events being bigger and bigger. And if we were to take any of these rumors and these speculations seriously, we could end up seeing more Marvel characters in these movies, which is exciting.
It's gonna be crazy. I love Spider-Man. He's always been my favorite superhero. So whenever
Absolutely.
a Spider-Man movie comes out, I'm always just like so excited. And we've had two banger Spider-Man movies come out like within the past year
Within
with
the
Into
past
the
6 months,
Spider-Verse
yeah.
as well. So Spider-Man is on top of the world, which is what I love to see because he's my favorite superhero of all time.
You love to
And
see it, man.
it's just a great movie.
All right, so the age-old question: should you see Spider-Man: Far From Home? Absolutely, see it multiple
Yes.
times.
And I think it's not obviously no one it's not no one's waiting to hear our opinion like to say like should you truly see it, but like if you are listening to this and you're like a casual Marvel fan and you think like I'll just wait till like another major Marvel movie like another Avengers or something like that, like
This is one of those
this
movies.
movie this is one of those movies that you need to see. Like this isn't one you can skip out on. Like maybe in the grand scheme of things you could skip out on Captain Marvel and like like that kind of thing, like these other small first Black Panther, but this movie is like it will play into like the rest of the Marvel movies, and it's also just obviously really good too. So you should absolutely see this movie if you were like on the edge of thinking if this wasn't important or not.
Absolutely, I could not agree more. As always, guys, that's going to do it for us here. Thank you so much for listening, for watching, for subscribing, for liking, interacting with us on social media. We appreciate anything we can get. Do you have anything else, Spence? You want to take us home?
Thanks for listening, guys, and then you can always follow us on Delivering Sports as well. It's on Twitter. It's at Delivering Sport, not Sports. So, and we do all kinds of cool sports coverage and stuff, free agency recaps. I do post game coverage for the Aces game field in Las Vegas and all that kind of fun stuff. So, thank you so much for listening.
We're waiting like tooth and nail to find out where Kawhi Leonard's going, so we can kind of wrap up the free agency saga. And we
Yeah,
hope
the rest
very
of
much
the
that it happens before we go to summer league on Friday. So be on the lookout for that if that interests you. All right,
the fourth
guys.
of Kawhi probably it'll be known as.
Probably the
Yeah.
4th of Kawhi. All right,
Yeah.
guys. Thanks so much. See you next time. Take
Yeah,
care of
thank you.
yourselves.